And we're joined here with Carl Rivkin. He's Manager of Safety Codes and Standards at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. And Carl, welcome.
Thank you for having me here.
Well, thanks for being here. Just real quick before we get into our discussion today, tell me more about the laboratory.
The National Renewable Energy Laboratory, or as it's typically referred to, NREL, is a U.S. Department of Energy laboratory located in Golden, Colorado. It's outside of Denver. The laboratory is focused on developing renewable energy technologies, and one of the technologies that NREL is working on is fuel cells. These are devices that will produce electricity using a chemical feed, in some cases, in many cases, hydrogen. And they are very clean, reliable devices.
Now, of course, fuel cells acting either as backup power or primary power, they really have impacts in three areas. And correct me if I'm wrong, though. First is clearly connectivity on the cellular level. Second would be an environmental impact. And third would be public safety. Can we start with the connectivity or the impact on connectivity?
Yes, these fuel cells can be used to provide backup power, as you mentioned, for cell tower sites, and they can be very reliable sources of backup power. They're also, as you mentioned, they're clean. They don't have any air pollutant emissions, and they're very reliable. So if the cell tower site, if the communications that site provides is a critical part of public safety, then they can give that reliable communications needed, for example, for emergency responders and police.
So if you gave us a real life case study of what would really happen if a cell site went down and how fuel cells would play a role in that over the last, let's say, 10 years, has something occurred where that played a part?
Yeah, one of the examples that comes to mind is Hurricane Katrina, where there was major damage to the infrastructure, including cell tower sites. And one of the impacts of that was that the backup power unit for the cell tower sites didn't function in some cases because it was dependent on fuel that wasn't available, or they ran out of fuel. If there had been fuel cells in place that were powered by hydrogen, for example, these cell towers could have functioned. There could have been connectivity for the emergency responders, for example, the fire department. In some cases, the fire department wasn't able to communicate and wasn't able to perform their emergency response functions.
Are there certain areas of the country where diesel generators are not permitted and they require a cleaner source of power?
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up, that there are several states that have prohibited the use of diesel generators for backup power, so that when a cell tower site is constructed and they're looking at options for backup power, they may no longer have the diesel option available. And in some cases, in some states, they will encourage cleaner combustion or reducing combustion to go to cleaner energy sources such as fuel cells.
Now, of course, the laboratory and your staff, you and your staff at the laboratory have recently released a document on fuel cell power. Can you tell us more about the document?
Yes, in April this year, the Fuel Cell Focus Group, which I'm the chairman of, released a document on guidance on siting stationary fuel cells to provide backup power at cell tower sites. This document gives an overview of the regulatory requirements that an installer or designer would have to comply with if they were to take on one of these projects. I think that it'll help them get oriented as far as what kind of requirements they'd be subject to. I think it'll save them a lot of time, and ultimately it'll save them money if they're going to take on one of these projects.
Carl, I know you've been working on this document for a couple of years. What was the primary driver for this document?
Industry was interested in doing more of these types of projects, more of these fuel cell installations, and they wanted to get more information out there to prospective developers so that they wouldn't have to confront some of the hurdles that they had confronted, and that they would make the process flow more smoothly. So it was primarily driven by industry. They wanted to make sure that people understood not only the regulatory requirements, but other issues that they might, or other issues they might confront when they were developing a project at a specific site. So this guide addresses both the regulatory requirements and the permitting process that a project would have to go through, and gives people some guidance on how to make that permitting process flow more smoothly.
Carl, thanks for the information.
Thank you.